At Grandma's 70th birthday party, a photo of grandfather with another woman suddenly appeared on the big screen. The guests burst into laughter, some even joking that grandfather was still quite the charmer in his old age. I thought Grandma would be utterly humiliated, but she just smiled, took the microphone from the MC, and spoke softly. Please give a warm round of applause for my husband, Grandfather Hui Sin, along with the woman who has been by his side for the past 50 years, Ms. Xuan Canh. Grandfather's face instantly darkened with anger. Ms. Xuan Canh, who was sitting at a table in the back, also looked furious. The music in the hall abruptly switched to a wedding song. The big screen continuously replayed images of grandfather and Ms. Xuan Canh. My father, seeing all this, flushed crimson with rage. All his life, grandfather had lived in splendor, enjoying immense prestige. Many of his students and business partners were present today. Grandma remained on stage, her face gentle, as if none of it concerned her. In my memory, she was always like that. No matter how big the problem, she remained calm and fearless in front of everyone. Since she married Grandfather Hui Sin at 20, it seemed she had never truly known freedom. People say, 70 is a rare age, live life as you please. Today is my 70th birthday, she continued, and also the day I begin a new life. After saying this, she gently bowed to the guests. At 20, she married Grandfather Hui Sin. A year later, she gave birth to my father, Tu Dean. That same year, Grandfather started his business, and Grandma officially gave up her own life to become a full-time housewife. That same year, Grandfather met Ms. Xuan Canh. Their 50-year marriage felt like a dream. People often say that family misfortunes should not be exposed. But today, I no longer wish to save Grandfather's reputation. After she spoke, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone seemed to be lost in her gentle words. When did she find out about this? About a month ago, it was as if she'd aged dramatically overnight. A few more silver strands appeared at her temples. I asked if something was wrong, if her health wasn't good, but she just shook her head and quietly walked into her bedroom. That evening, Grandfather called me, asking me to tell Grandma he wouldn't be home for dinner. Usually, even when he didn't come home, she'd leave his portion of food in a warming box, waiting for him to eat, just so he could have the first hot bite. But that day, after hearing the message, she silently poured out all the leftover food and sat alone on the balcony, watching the sunset. I had never seen her like that before, her face on the verge of tears, yet no tears fell. That night, when Grandfather returned, she was already asleep. He noticed his portion of food wasn't on the table, looked slightly surprised, but said nothing, just took a shower and went to bed. Looking back now, perhaps that's when she discovered the affair between him and Ms. Xuan Canh, which is why she discarded his meal. I looked at Grandma on stage, a pang of sorrow rising in my heart. Even in her rebellion, she remained so gentle. As if all the hurt inflicted upon her didn't cause her pain, as if she didn't even want anyone, not even me, to know. It seemed she had always been like this, shouldering everything by herself. When I was 6, Grandma had a high fever. My parents weren't home, nor was Grandfather. I found her collapsed on the kitchen floor, a pot of chicken soup she'd cooked for Grandfather still on the stove. Back then, his company was struggling, and he worked himself to exhaustion, never coming home all day. I cried as I ran to knock on our neighbor's door. In the hospital room, a nurse asked if an adult was with me. I knew my parents' and Grandfather's phone numbers by heart, but no one answered. I couldn't reach anyone, only cried and shook my head, begging them to save Grandma first. When I finally saw Grandfather, I nearly burst into tears, running to him. Grandma collapsed. In my memory, he impatiently patted my shoulder, quickly signed the payment papers, and whispered, "Why couldn't she get sick sooner or later? Why now?" The kitchen almost exploded, and now I have to waste time at the hospital signing papers. Why didn't she just die already? That was the first time I heard the word die from his mouth. From then on, I vaguely understood about life and death. While waiting for Grandma to wake up, I started to hate hospitals, hate the color white, hate the smell of disinfectant. But the IV drip was the only thing I didn't hate, because I knew it was saving her life. When she regained consciousness, I had fallen asleep by her bedside. The IV drip had run out, and bright red blood flowed back into the tube. I thought she wouldn't make it and burst into helpless tears, but she just smiled weakly, trying to raise her other hand to stroke my head. "Gently now, don't be scared, nothing serious." Grandma's voice was faint, almost devoid of strength. "Quinn, do you see the call button by the bed? I sobbed, nodding vigorously. Press that button, tell them someone needs help. When the nurse arrived, her eyes widened in astonishment, her voice tinged with reproach. Little one, where are your parents? Why are you here alone? I pressed my lips together, not daring to tell Grandma, not daring to tell the nurse that grandfather had actually come but then left. I also didn't dare say that my parents' calls had gone through, but they only said they were busy. A child's emotions are hard to hide. Grandma sensed my sadness and gently comforted me. Having Quinn by Grandma's side is enough. The first to speak wasn't grandfather, but my father. He looked at Grandma on stage, his face flushed with worry, his whole body trembling. Family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. Mother, what exactly do you want to do? Seeing my father's expression, a cold smile inexplicably formed on my lips. As a daughter, I put myself in Grandma's shoes. If my father had cheated on my mother for 50 years, would I be like my father now, standing in front of my mother, red-faced and yelling at her about not exposing family secrets? This was my mother, who had given birth to me and raised me for decades. Looking at my father now, I felt as if I had never truly known him. The image of the tall, imposing father in my heart shattered. Growing up, perhaps, truly happens in a single moment. Grandma wasn't rushed. She gently put down the microphone, still wearing a faint smile, just like on her hospital bed that day, her eyes filled with comfort as she looked at me. As her granddaughter, I couldn't hold back any longer and was about to step onto the stage towards her, but Ms. Xuan Canh stood up first. She was 3 years younger than Grandma, had never had children, and still maintained a slender figure despite being 67. Compared to Grandma, she looked somewhat younger and more elegant. As soon as Ms. Xuan Canh moved, Grandfather couldn't help but look at her, his eyes revealing a clear sense of guilt. But when he looked at Grandma, his gaze was filled with reproach. In front of Grandma, Ms. Xuan Canh linked arms with Grandfather and walked out of the banquet hall with an arrogant demeanor. My parents, embarrassed, quietly followed behind. I felt like crying, but I was no longer a 6-year-old girl. Now I was 24. At 6, I couldn't protect Grandma, but at 24 I could. I walked onto the stage, took the microphone, and kept my voice steady. Grandfather, I said. He heard my voice and paused his steps slightly. I didn't give him a chance to react, continuing, Grandma's divorce papers have been left on your desk. I wish you and Ms. Xuan Canh a long and happy life together. After Grandfather and my parents left, I handed the microphone back to the MC. The guests in the hall looked bewildered, but Grandma acted as if nothing had happened, pulling me to the table to eat leisurely. Seeing her like that, my heart ached. How many things had she endured to appear so carefree? Grandma, I said, I'll help you with the divorce papers. Don't worry about the asset division. She just glanced at me gently, a smile playing on her lips. Having Quinn by my side, I'm at ease. After the guests left, I pushed a large cake in front of her. Originally, this cake was for 5 people, but now it's just you and me. I said, Grandma, make a wish and blow out the candles. She looked at the candles on the cake, her voice tinged with a hint of regret. I'm 70 years old now, aren't I? She closed her eyes, whispered a prayer, muttering, but I clearly heard her murmur, I only wish Quinn peace and joy. I couldn't hold back anymore, my shoulders trembled. Her entire life she had endured so much hardship, yet in the end, she still only thought of me. She stroked my head. Quinn, do you want to travel? All her life, she had been confined to the iron cage of family. Her youth was spent busy caring for the household, and in old age, she had to care for me. Later, when I grew up and invited her out, she would just laugh and say, I'm old, I can't walk anymore. But today, she asked me that question. I quickly nodded. The next day, I took her shopping, buying her several new outfits she had never worn before. Carrying large and small bags, we arrived home. I expected the house to be empty, but as soon as I opened the door, Grandfather and my parents were sitting there, their faces stern. As Grandma stepped in, an empty water bottle flew towards her. I quickly raised my hand to shield her. She just looked up at Grandfather once, then silently changed her slippers. Do you still have the face to come back here? Is this even a home anymore? Grandfather's angry voice echoed through the living room. Grandma said nothing, and I didn't bother to pay attention to him. I carried the bags of clothes to my feet, arranging them neatly, not taking anything out. After all, we intended to leave anyway. My father looked at Grandma, his voice low but full of reproach. Mother, how could you disrespect him in front of so many people? My mother next to him also looked displeased. Perhaps because most of today's guests were business partners, this incident would surely affect my parents' work. I'm talking to my mother? My father, seeing Grandma's silence, grew even angrier and stood up, blocking her path. Grandma looked up at my father and gently called, "To Dean, I'm tired." Perhaps because Grandma's voice was so heartbreaking, my father was momentarily stunned. Grandma slowly walked into the living room, took out the divorce papers she had printed and signed that afternoon, and placed them in front of Grandfather. Grandfather was a proud man. This was the first time in his life he had seen divorce papers. He didn't even look at them, immediately tore them to shreds, and scattered them across the living room. I had anticipated his reaction and took out another identical copy from my bag. "This is a copy I asked my friend to prepare, with the strictest terms regarding marital infidelity. I've already put a copy on your desk, so sign it. Even if you tear this one, I have many more. As for cleaning up this mess, you're on your own." Grandfather had never liked me since I was a child, simply because I wasn't a boy, so I wasn't close to him either. But for the sake of adult appearances, he couldn't vent his anger on me and instead turned to my mother. "Is this the daughter you raised? Useless, a hen that can't lay eggs." I looked at my mother, even hoping she would say something, but she said nothing, only giving me a fierce, threatening look as she always had. In this house, where Grandfather was the center, my mother had always been submissive. Initially, I didn't understand, but gradually, I realized that changing a person is truly difficult. Instead of hoping others will change, it's better not to expect anything from the start. Grandma returned to her room, silently packing her belongings. She had lived in this house for over half her life, yet in the end, she could only take a few clothes. She had very few personal possessions. "Go on then. If you walk out of this house today, don't ever come back. Divorce, fine, but don't expect to take any assets." I looked at Grandfather and my parents as if seeing them anew. I asked my mother, "Do you think so too?" She didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. I used to think silence wasn't an answer, but now I understood that silence is consent. I didn't have many belongings, so I packed a few clothes and left with Grandma. Most of what remained in the house were memories, but the most precious thing was the memories of my time with Grandma. A few days after moving out, Grandma seemed to have shed a heavy burden, looking noticeably younger. Seeing her like that, I was happy too, until Ms. Xuan Canh sought me out, not Grandma. This surprised me quite a bit. "Quinn, come sit here." When I arrived, she was already sitting in the hotel lobby, elegantly sipping afternoon tea. "Do you need something?" I was never a forgiving person, especially since she and Grandfather had been secretly seeing each other behind Grandma's back for 50 years. I couldn't swallow this injustice for Grandma. Ms. Xuan Canh smiled faintly, her eyes looking at me kindly, giving no room for criticism. "Quinn, persuade your Grandma." I crossed my arms, not answering. I just wanted to see how shameless she could be. "We're both old now, it's not good to involve a child, but I know you and your Grandma are very close. The matter between Grandfather and me, after all these years, is in the past. Initially, I just admired him, but I never thought of destroying his family." It was then that I realized Ms. Xuan Canh knew Grandfather even before he married Grandma. She was younger back then, and her family was wealthier than Grandfather's, so her father disapproved. In the end, Grandfather married Grandma through an arranged match. But the year he got married, Ms. Xuan Canh's family faced a crisis, and her father was arrested and jailed. From then on, she was adrift. When she returned to look for Grandfather, he was already married. Ms. Xuan Canh clarified that she had never intended to destroy Grandfather's and Grandma's marriage. "In the past, polygamy was common, so I proposed to be a concubine. Your Grandfather, being proud, refused at first, but seeing my fallen state, he took pity on me." It was then that I finally understood why, from my childhood until now, Grandfather always made excuses to be busy and not come home for dinner. It turned out he was with Ms. Xuan Canh. "I've told you so much. What do you think I want? Do you want my sympathy, or for me to praise your and Grandfather's unwavering love, or do you want to boast about your glorious life as a mistress with benefits?" Ms. Xuan Canh, hearing me, wasn't angry, only smiled faintly. "Quinn, don't be hasty. I'm just telling you the truth." I was so angry I laughed. Typical old people's tricks. Even now, you're still proud of being a third party, living with an old man for decades without status. Aren't you ashamed? Ms. Xuan Canh took a sip of tea, gently smoothed her hair, maintaining her smile, but her eyes revealed a flicker of guilt. "But I did get his love, didn't I? Having love is enough. Even plain meals taste good with love." I laughed again, not knowing if I was laughing at her or at myself, but mostly at Ms. Xuan Can's patheticness. Even old, a love brain is still a love brain. I looked at Ms. Xuan Can and asked, "Do you think grandfather truly loved you, or were you just after his money? If grandfather truly loved you, why didn't he dare to be open about you with grandma all these years? If he truly loved you, he wouldn't have refused to divorce grandma to marry you. Wake up, you've been foolish your whole life, and you still don't understand." I saw a few wrinkles appear on Ms. Xuan Can's carefully maintained face, but I wasn't going to let up, continuing to hit her where it hurt most. "The love you speak of is grandfather's 50-year-long secret affair with you. And you're like a sewer rat, afraid to show your face in the light, only able to secretly watch us take happy family photos. It's not that you didn't need status, it's that grandfather simply couldn't give you status. As his granddaughter, I understand grandfather's character selfish his entire life, loving only himself. Men are just like that, they want a good wife at home and a mistress outside." I looked at Ms. Xuan Can, shook my head, and said nothing more, leaving her to ponder the rest. But before leaving, I still left her with a parting shot. "That old man, if you like him, I'll give him to you, but whether you can truly have him depends on your capabilities." Grandfather still refused to sign the divorce papers, simply because he didn't want to split his money with grandma. As the at-fault party in the marriage, he should have left empty-handed, but he couldn't accept a life without money. That was why he kept refusing to sign. Ms. Xuan Can coming to me now was the first blade, and the second blade was already on its way. After my father and Ms. Xuan Can left, I took out my phone and sent the documents I had asked my friend to gather about my father. Grandfather's company's interests were closely tied to my father. If something happened to my father, given grandfather's character, he would immediately cut ties to protect himself. That was his selfish nature. I returned to the hotel and found grandma sitting on the sofa, scrolling through short videos on her phone, the screen showing the funniest one. "Quinn, what does stinky baby mean? Is that what kids call each other these days?" Hearing her ask this, all my irritation melted away and I burst out laughing. "It's almost like a term of endearment, grandma." She frowned slightly, her eyes full of doubt, as if pondering. "Why add stinky to baby, I wonder?" As night fell, my phone vibrated intensely. I didn't even need to look to know it was my parents calling. As soon as I answered, my mother's angry voice filled the air. "Quinn, what exactly do you want to do? Do you have to turn this house upside down? What? Have you been with your grandma too long and become utterly lawless?" I paused, thinking. Usually, after receiving documents about my father, my mother should have been furious with him, because the documents contained information about my father's illegitimate child. But at this moment, my mother wasn't blaming him. Instead, she was venting her anger on me. "You knew about this for a long time, didn't you, mother?" She was silent for a few seconds, then evaded the question. "What exactly do you want to do?" Hearing my mother's question, I no longer held any expectations. As long as grandfather signed the divorce papers, he would leave empty-handed, and the assets would be divided without affecting the company or implicating my parents. But if this matter were exposed, the company's stock would be in danger. The Pha family, now in its third generation with me, had grown too fast, naturally creating many enemies in the business world. My mother sighed deeply, then hung up. I looked at Grandma and decided to speak. "Grandma, do you want to divorce him?" Grandma, who was scrolling through videos, suddenly stopped and put down her phone. "Quinn, your grandfather and I have nothing left to hold on to. Now I just want to live freely." I smiled. "Don't worry about the rest, I'll take care of it." Just 2 days later, grandfather proactively called grandma. On the day they went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to process the divorce, grandma intentionally wore a red cheongsam, looking radiant and spirited. When grandfather saw her, his eyes showed a flicker of surprise, while he himself looked disheveled, his beard unkempt. Until now, grandma had always managed his attire. He had never hired a housekeeper. Now that she was gone, even if he didn't say it outwardly, I could tell he looked rather shabby, his jacket askew. Seeing grandma, he scoffed coldly, not even bothering to look directly at her. She just glanced at him, not bothering to say anything. Grandfather was slightly stunned. In his memory, grandma had never dared to treat him like that. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, there was still time before the divorce was official. Ms. Xuan Can was already standing outside, waiting for grandfather. I sat in a sports car, waving to grandma to get in. She wore sunglasses, her face beaming, and turned to smile at me. "Quinn, my good girl." I pouted playfully, fiddling with my sheep charm, but in my heart I thought, having grandma is truly good. The 30-day cooling-off period for divorce passed faster than expected. During this time, for the sake of appearances, grandfather transferred all his money to grandma. My parents were present, and I had an agreement with them. As soon as the money was in the account, I would immediately destroy all evidence in my hands. Those things held no value for me. Keeping them would be useless. I no longer had any lingering attachment to my parents or that family. Grandma and I sold the house we had lived in for so many years. When grandfather was evicted, he was still bewildered, even thinking grandma was just joking, that she couldn't possibly sell the house for real. But he had clearly underestimated the clarity of a woman once she awakens. When a woman stands firm, where can a man find footing? Ms. Xuan Canh was no less surprised when she met grandfather again. Initially, she had prepared to move in with him once they had their marriage certificate, but she hadn't expected grandfather to be evicted first. When the cleaning company staff asked if anything needed to be kept, grandma quickly replied, "No need, throw everything away." During those 30 days, grandma and I lived temporarily in Dali. The slow pace of life and youthful atmosphere in Dali delighted her. She even blended in with the younger crowd without any awkwardness. She strolled through Dali Old Town with me, and in the evenings, sat by the roadside, chatting with strangers. When she met young women feeling lost, she would gently advise them to learn to love themselves. Grandma's transformation was so significant that when the day came to return for the official divorce papers, she still felt a sense of longing for Dolly. I sat in the private jet cabin, holding a glass of champagne, and persuaded her. "Once we're divorced, let's open a homestay together. We can play there every day. Otherwise, what will we do with all the money we'll share?" Grandma was used to being frugal, even with money. She didn't dare to spend much, always thinking about grandfather's difficult entrepreneurial journey. Little did she know he had accumulated a vast fortune long ago. When I saw grandfather again, his face showed clear signs of hardship and exhaustion. He pleaded, "I was wrong, please don't get divorced, okay?" I raised an eyebrow, looking at him, clearly knowing everything he had been up to. After moving into Ms. Xuan Can's house, she discovered he had no money, demanded money from my father, but was promptly kicked out by him. My father now had no sympathy for her, seeing her only as the reason he lost a large sum of money. Initially, grandfather hadn't worried, thinking Ms. Xuan Can loved him deeply, regardless of money. But just 3 days after moving into her house, he was kicked out. Ms. Xuan Can couldn't take it anymore, pointing her finger at grandfather and yelling, "You foolish old man, getting divorced and kicked out of your house. You're filthy, you don't even shower, and you expect me to wait on you? Get out. You never gave me status all these years, and now you come begging when you're broke. What do you think I am, a garbage collector?" When the staff I hired showed me this video, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I showed it to Grandma. She just smiled faintly, saying nothing, but her shoulders trembled, clearly trying to stifle her laughter. Grandfather sought out my parents. Although my parents let him stay, grandfather had lost all power in the company and was no longer of any use. My parents treated him coldly. Coupled with the company's falling stock, they were even more displeased. There was a housekeeper, but she often bullied grandfather when my parents were away. Grandfather complained to my parents, but they only made excuses about being busy to avoid him. When I saw grandfather again, his eyes were bloodshot. As soon as he saw grandma, he rushed towards her, but she recoiled, waving him away. "Stay away, I'm just here to pick up the papers, then I'm leaving. Seeing you brings bad luck." Grandma was different now, her tone with him full of confidence. After all, grandfather now only had his age, there was nothing left for her to worry about. He kept muttering, "I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. Without you, I can't eat, I can't sleep." I stood in front of Grandma. "You're not regretting, you're afraid of being broke." I looked at my parents, seeing their impatience, urging grandfather to hurry up. Leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Grandma looked several years younger, her face radiant. It's true that a happy person has a cheerful spirit, but my parents' joy didn't last long. As Grandma and I were sunbathing in Manover, she looked at her phone and suddenly said, "Quinn, your parents are in the news." I raised an eyebrow, taking the phone from her hand. On the screen, in a large font suitable for the elderly, a news headline clearly read, "Shock. The Pha family emerges with a secret illegitimate child. The 70-year-old still daring, 50-year love affair finally exposed, followed by 3 exclamation marks. As soon as I opened my phone, I saw the news pushed to the screen. I swear I didn't do this. After all, my father's downfall wouldn't benefit me. Who knows, I might even get a share of the money later. I clicked to view it. On the screen appeared an image of a girl about 20 years old holding a banner in front of my parents' company. On the prominent red banner were the words, "To Dean, my father, a heart of a wolf, unfeeling and ungrateful." Initially, I didn't understand what was happening. After all, this month Grandma and I were enjoying the sea, admiring handsome men with six-packs, completely unconcerned about domestic affairs. After browsing online, I finally understood the whole story. My father did indeed have an illegitimate child. He was afraid of exposure, so he always used money to resolve the issue, including providing for the child's mother. Even the illegitimate daughter herself didn't know her biological father was Dean. But ironically, after the child's mother passed away, she found her diary, which documented 20 years of love and longing for my father. Even on her deathbed, she called his name. My heart ached. That woman was so foolish and pitiable. She endured her entire life for a man, her daughter not even acknowledged, simply because she was a girl. If she had been a boy, perhaps I wouldn't have a place now. Suddenly, I also understood why my mother chose to help my father hide it, because she felt guilty for not bearing him a son. The news spread like wildfire online, especially on Redbook, a Chinese social media platform filled with scathing posts. Netizens were furious. Like father, like son, all men are equally terrible, a bunch of scoundrels, not only denying their mistress, but also their own biological daughter. They say the old woman from the Pho family exposed the old man at his birthday party, so angry she took her granddaughter and left. My phone vibrated continuously with messages from my mother. As soon as I answered, her furious voice immediately rang out. "Quinn, what exactly do you want to do? Do you have to cause chaos in this family? What? You've been with your grandma too long and become utterly lawless." I thought quietly. Typically, after receiving documents about my father, my mother should have been angry with him because the documents contained information about his illegitimate child. But at this moment, my mother wasn't blaming him. Instead, she was venting her anger on me. "You knew about this for a long time, didn't you, Mother?" She was silent for a few seconds, then evaded the question. "What exactly do you want to do?" Hearing my mother's question, I no longer held any expectations. As long as grandfather signed the divorce papers, he would leave empty-handed, and the assets would be divided without affecting the